In this video I'm going to show how I resize an Omega Seamaster bracelet. This is the Bond style bracelet found on many different Seamaster models. First thing I do is I take the bracelet off the watch because I prefer to work on it that way. I assess the bracelet to see condition, see if there are any problem pins, any aftermarket pins. Sometimes you'll find those on bracelets that have been previously repaired. If I feel one side of the bracelet is too long or too short, I can also plan to make changes there. I prefer that the distance to the clasp, watch head to clasp, be shorter on the 6 o'clock side of the watch. So I use that plastic pin pusher tool to remove pins and this watch hammer to put the pins back into the bracelet. I used to use the hammer and pins to remove them, but this plastic pusher actually works better on Seamaster bracelets. To use the tool, it's very simple. You put the bracelet in the tool, you carefully align the pusher pin with the pin in the bracelet, and slowly turn clockwise, and that will press the pusher pin against the pin in the bracelet, slowly forcing it out of the bracelet. You want to be very careful in doing this. Don't worry about taking your time. This is a step in this process in which patience is very critical. You want to make sure the pusher pin is lined up right exactly with the pin, and you want to just push slowly but firmly, and the pin should dislodge. If it doesn't for some reason, you may want to try soaking that part of the bracelet in some penetrating oil or spray some. That would usually loosen any stubborn pins. But most of the time, this tool is really effective in removing pins on these bracelets, I've found. So you turn clockwise as much as possible, and once you've done so, you unwind, turn counterclockwise to take the pusher pin out, and you will remove the bracelet here. And these Bond bracelets are 20 millimeter wide throughout, so sometimes the pin will still be slightly stuck in the bracelet, and you can pull that out usually with your fingers. If you need a little extra force, just use needle nose pliers carefully to make sure not to bend the pin, and just pull outward, and it should come out because it's just a very little portion of the pin remaining. When you take the link off the bracelet, you'll see two collars fall out. The collars are found in the middle links. They sit right in the middle links, and the pin goes through them, and that's what basically creates the tension to hold everything together. You want to make sure you don't lose those collars. They're vital to the bracelet functioning correctly. If you put a pin back in without the collars, it's very easy for it would be very easy for the pin to fall out and causing the watch to fall. So keep those in a safe place when you're doing this. Definitely, it doesn't hurt to have a plastic bag or container for that. So I like to, after I've taken out the link or added one, I like to just put everything together for a test fit to see how it would look, to see how the symmetry would be between the two halves of the bracelet. You can put the pins back in and put the bracelet on the watch for a test wearing. You want to be careful, obviously, because in doing so, you're putting the pins back in without the collars. So I would only do that to test the fit, and I would still be very careful in doing so. Something to note about these pins is that they have a groove in them. I like to have the groove go into the bracelet last. I find that if the groove engages the collar, that creates a little resistance when you're putting the pin back in. So something to be aware of when you're putting the watch back together, the bracelet back together. Now, when you're ready to put it back together, you want to put those collars in the middle links, and sometimes it can be tricky to do. You can use the pin, as I just did there, to guide the collar in place, and it's essential that the collar is exactly perfectly in its spot in the middle link. If it's not, you can't put the bracelet back together, so you just have to carefully make sure that they're seated in place. And here's another view of doing that. See, the collar there needs to be just adjusted slightly because if it's sticking out, it will impede putting the two links together. There, put the collar back into where it's supposed to sit. You can put the two links together. Then you can put the pin back. Obviously you can just start the pin with your hand because it would need some force to go in. You'll want to put it in against the direction of the arrow. Should have mentioned that when you're taking the pin out, you follow the arrow. And then you just hold everything together with your fingers very tightly. And I like to use the plastic or rubber side of the watch hammer and just gently hammer the pin in. You want to go slowly because you want to make sure the pin is correctly aligned with the collar. These are, somewhat complex bracelets, so they can be out of alignment. And if you do that, you're just hammering, and it's not going to go in, and you might be causing damage. So you want to go carefully, gently hammer. Once the pin is in, you can test it with the pin pusher tool like this to make sure that the pin is very snug. You don't want to have a loose pin. Just spell trouble down the road. And you'll do that for any other links you want to put back on the bracelet. And basically that's all there is to it. Like I said, I like to use that hammer and plastic holder when I'm hammering pins back into the bracelet, and I like to use the plastic pusher tool with the handle you turn for removing the pins. Particularly on Seamaster bracelets, I found that tool to be quite effective and easier to deal with than a hammer and pin set for the removal. But that's all there is to it. With some practice, anybody can do this, and you save money and time. If you have any questions about this, please leave them below, and thanks for watching.